CreatiVity with V. Episode 105, Black Widow. Our host with the French roast. Here we go, Mr. V.
Biff. Thanks, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Okay, so we're episode 105, right?
Yeah, that's what I said.
All right, we're going to do some Black Widow and see what we can. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the history of Black Widow in the comics, her MCU journey, her Marvel Cinematic Universe journey, and, of course, the thing that everyone's talking about right now, her lawsuit against Walt Disney Company. Some people say she shouldn't. I personally think she should. Contract is a contract. Anyway, so we will start here in just a second, but first, we got to cover some stuff. Ready?
I'm ready when you are.
All right, Biff, take it away.
Okay, so please click and subscribe if you like this podcast and you find it at least entertaining, even if we annoy you, and even more so if you, God forbid, think. Or you can click the link below and buy us a cup of coffee. You can even buy us up to 5 cups of coffee at one time, or you can subscribe to the podcast and check out the various subscription levels.
Very good, Biff.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as an independent creator, I just want to thank you for checking us out and listening here to CreatiVity with V. No matter whose channel it is, if we all benefit if you like, subscribe, share. Just makes it better for all the creators around here and for those at the creative community at large. So support your musicians, your stand-up comics, your writers, your artists, philosophers, poets, dancers, musicians. Do it. Okay, Biff, anything else you want to add here before we start?
Oh, one more thing. Today's episode of CreatiVity is sponsored by VaudevillePress.com. Our world, your stage. Moving on. Now, Mr. V.
Okay, so welcome, humans. This is a spoiler-filled discussion/review. I'm not a fan of spoilers coming out of left field, but also I'm not a fan of covering a show without actually being able to talk about it freely. I want to be able to discuss the cool shit, the bad shit, and in expanded detail if I have to, or if we want to, and even if we don't. Now, on with the show. All right, so here's some cool things here happening. Okay, I just clicked the wrong thing on the computer. Hi, I'm not 20 years old. How you doing? Okay, so CreatiVity seems 17% of our audience is in Europe. We have North America, Asia, and Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, and the surrounding right there. Okay, so we have people calling in. Let's see. We have people calling in. We have people listening. United States, Germany, France, Canada, the UK, Ukraine, Belgium, Australia, India, Italy, and the Netherlands. And let's see here. Let's thank some people here in the U.S. People listening in Chicago, Illinois, Glendale, Arizona, Manhattan, New York, San Fernando, California, the Bronx, New York, New York, Darien, Illinois, Downers Grove, Illinois. Let's see, we have Montvale, Virginia. We have Yorba Linda, California, Columbus, Ohio. We have Lehigh in Utah, Irving, Texas, South Salt Lake, Utah, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Winona, Minnesota, Madison, Wisconsin, Oxnard, California, Lockport, Illinois, Ellijay, Georgia, Racine, Wisconsin, Clive, Iowa, High Springs, Florida, Dakota, Minnesota, Serafina, New Mexico. How you guys doing out there? Railwood, Florida, and Casas Adobes, Arizona. I probably totally mispronounced that. But anyway, just like to thank everyone for listening. Tell your friends. And as we move on, each podcast, as you can see, is getting more of a smoother thing. Just getting used to it here. New studio, new equipment. And we'll be bringing more people on here to interview. I just wanted to get a a few under the belt, make sure everything was going fine technically. And now we'll start to have filmmakers and artists and actors and writers and artists and dancers and painters and all types of people on here who use their creativity to make the world a better place. Good or bad? That's up for history to decide. But creativity always plays a role. And, it's funny how the people who create often get the less of the share of anything that's done monetarily with the stuff that they create. The suits think it's more important that they make all the money because they are wearing a suit and they're not some artist who, may drink a little bit or imbibe or just be slightly off-center and sometimes pegged way to the left or way to the right. You never know, but creativity makes it so. So let's move on here. Black Widow. Okay, let's start with the fan base, or at least some of the people talking about them being part of the fan base. It seems the past few years of the increasing rage over everything has infected our community. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. But, man, stop whining. Everyone's whining and bitching and moaning about every little thing. Look, if you're not happy with any of the stuff that you're watching, don't. But I know that's how you make your money, if you are at that level. We all know that you come from a place that you love this stuff, and maybe you don't love it anymore. And maybe that's what you're really mad at, because comics have always changed. Some stuff, there's the stunt casting and, look at the disaster that, the Batwoman series had. Okay, she couldn't act her way out of a paper bag. She obviously wasn't happy. But, so they recast her, and then that had problems. Definitely a better actress, but, this is all part of what's going on. Like I watched this show the other night. What was it called? It was with Kate Beckinsale on Netflix. Jolt? Yeah, Jolt. There's someone in there that's of a checkbox of 3 or 4 different things that people want to make sure that they have in there. But in a lot of projects, they're worried about checking the box rather than having someone who's right for the role. They had someone right for the role, made sense, didn't talk about it. They relied on the actor to portray that character in a great way, and it was. I love that movie. I'm looking for a few more of them, but anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. We're going to discuss the tragedy of waiting 10 years to make the Black Widow movie. I think they should have made it long ago. I think they should have made it after Iron Man 3, where she was still seen as a fierce warrior that Black Widow has always been in the comics, well, most of the time. And I don't know, I think they did a little bit of a disservice waiting, but I'll get into that. I still enjoyed the movie, but the Black Widow movie of today would have been way different than the Black Widow movie of, let's say, 6, 7 years ago, if they would have made it then. Why did they wait so long to make her movie? I don't know. Service? Fan service? Or service to connect the next generation of these heroes. They're not going to recycle like they have in the comics, but anyway, let's get into it. Okay, so the Black Widow movies, or the Black Widow appearances in Marvel Cinematic Universe, are as follows. Iron Man 2 in May of 2010. Marvel's The Avengers, May of 2012. Captain America, The Winter Soldier, April 2014. Avengers Age of Ultron, July 2015. Captain America Civil War, May of 2016. Avengers Infinity War, April 2018. And the following year with Avengers Endgame. Before finally coming out with Black Widow, the movie, after she's dead. Makes sense. Add in some pandemic, some scheduling issues, some suits and bean counters don't know their ass from their elbow, and they do the one thing that you should not do for the only person really making buttloads of cash in Hollywood is piss off Kevin Feige. But just proves that the corporate people need the money. Give me money. We've screwed up everything else. We've pissed off our fan bases and all the big IPs that we have, and we're making recycled garbage. Hey, what's that over there? Oh, that's the guy who's bringing in billions and billions of dollars every year through this blah, 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 blah. Oh, let's go. Yeah, that was fucking stupid. Anyway, okay, so this is right from Marvel.com. Okay, so Natasha Romanov. Let's go through her aliases. Natasha Romanov, Nadine Roman, Nat, Serena, October, Laura Mathers, Nancy Rushman, Black Pearl, Natalia Shatsakova, and Natsuka Serena. Education unrevealed, formerly believed to be a college graduate. Intense espionage training through Taras Romanov and the Red Room Academy. Place of origin, of course, is Stalingrad, former USSR. Identity, publicly known. Known relatives, her alleged brother, deceased Vindicator. Then we have Alexei Shatsatakov, Red Guardian, estranged spouse. Slowed aging, superhuman durability are her powers. Her group affiliations are Avengers, S.H.I.E.L.D., and Secret Avengers. Now, this is from the comic book side. So, as we know, in the movie, Red Guardian is not her estranged spouse, is now her kind of quote-unquote foster father, foster dad, whatever you want to call it. So, let's see what they say about her here. Ruthless, efficient, and exceptionally skilled, Natasha strikes fear into the heart of her enemies. Although she once operated on the side of evil, her innate heroism allowed her to overcome her upbringing and defect, setting her on a lifelong path of redemption. Sorry, I had to do the movie voice there. Okay, Natasha Romanov was born in the Soviet Union and is Natalia Alanova Romanov. Although her exact parentage is unknown, it's rumored that she's related to the Romanov dynasty, the former rulers of Russia. But those claims have so far been unproven. Orphaned as a child, she was rescued during an attack on Stalingrad by a man named Ivan Petrovich Baskohov, who looked after her and trained the girl. And as she grew, Natasha's talents caught the attention of Soviet intelligence, soon to be known as the KGB, and was recruited into their ranks. During World War II, Natasha was kidnapped by the Hand, who sought to make her a brainwashed master assassin. Luckily, she was rescued by Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Logan, who would later become Wolverine during the war. The young Natasha served in the Russian army, where she fell in love with another young soldier named Nikolai. Despite their initial happiness, their union did not end blissfully. Nikolai was killed in the war, and the baby girl they conceived did not survive the birth. Following World War II, Natasha progressed into the Black Widow program, where young girls like her were conditioned to become sleeper agents. Trained at a facility called the Red Room, Natasha was also enhanced with the Soviets' version of the super serum soldier, gifting her with peak human strength and stamina, as well as resistance to disease and slowed down aging. Natasha has memories of studying to be a ballerina as a cover during this time. However, because of her psyche was tampered with by the government, it is unclear if she actually was ever a ballerina or these memories were just implants. As her Black Widow training progressed, she encountered and romanced Captain America's former best friend and sidekick, James Buchanan Barnes, who had also been brainwashed into becoming the assassin known as the Winter Soldier. The relationship didn't last long as she was set up to marry Alexei Shostakov, a renowned test pilot. Though they had a happy marriage and the KGB faked his death during an experimental rocket test in order to make him into the Red Guardian, the USSR's version of Captain America, a hero who would represent and defend that nation. Natasha's grief over his death drove her further into the clutches of control of the Red Room Academy, and she finally earned the title of Black Widow. Although she initially worked against the Avengers of the United States on the behest of her superiors, Natasha ended up defecting to join S.H.I.E.L.D. and later the Avengers to become a true superhero. Now that's from the comic book side, all right? So we're going to see what the difference is here when it comes to her cinematic universe version of this character. Okay, so back to the Black Widow cinematic universe. Here's a quote from Natasha Romanov to Steve Rogers. I used to have nothing, and then I got this job, this family, and I was better because of it. And even though they're gone, I'm still trying to be better. Natalia Alanova, Natasha Romanov, also known as Black Widow, is one of the most talented spies and assassins in the entire world and a founding member of the Avengers. As a child, she was indoctrinated in the Red Room by General Dreykov and briefly lived as a surrogate daughter of Alexei Shakukov and Melina Vostokov while they were undercover in the United States of America. After the destruction of the North Institute, she underwent extensive psychological conditioning before graduating from the Red Room as a widow. Working as an operative for the KGB, she was targeted by S.H.I.E.L.D. before given the chance to ultimately defect to the organization by Clint Barton by assassinating Dreykov. Romanov succeeded, although having to use his daughter, Antonia Dreykov's life as collateral damage would haunt her for the rest of her life. Having extensive mastery in martial arts and armed with her widow's bite, Black Widow became one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most efficient agents. During one mission, she was sent undercover into Stark Industries to watch Tony Stark due to the fear that he was dying. During this mission, Romanov assisted Stark with defeating Ivan Vanko's terrorist plots against him. While Loki declared war on the Earth, Black Widow was recruited into the Avengers after Hawkeye, who had just been enthralled by Loki. Romanov assisted in recruiting Stark and Bruce Banner into the team while they were tracked down and attempted to capture Loki, eventually saving Barton from his grasp. Once Loki's entire plan had been uncovered, Romanov joined the team during the Battle of New York and was instrumental in destroying the portal over the city, which had been created by the Tesseract, effectively ending the entire invasion while Loki was defeated and captured. In the wake of the Avengers successfully defeating Loki, Romanov continued to work with S.H.I.E.L.D., this time working with Captain America. While working together, Romanov and Rogers uncovered a conspiracy following an assassination attempt on Nick Fury, which eventually led them to discover that Hydra had somehow been infiltrating their entire organization. Despite the efforts of the Winter Soldier to stop them, Romanov helped expose Alexander Pierce's evil schemes to the world, which also resulted in all of her morally dubious history being revealed. As a result, Romanov was forced into dropping off the grid again and began rebuilding her cover. Romanov eventually rejoined the Avengers, working to bring down various Hydra cells across the world and assisting in the capture of Wolfgang von Strucker. However, before she could form a romantic relationship with Banner, the rogue artificial intelligence Ultron was created by Stark and Banner, forcing Romanov and the rest of their team to join together and defeat him. Despite being captured, Romanov was finally able to inform the team of Ultron's location on Sokovia, resulting in a final battle in which the Avengers have defeated Ultron once and for all. Unlike most members of the original Avengers, Black Widow remained a member while forming the second incarnation of the team. As many of the governments of the world had demanded the Avengers to sign the Sokovia Accords in the wake of the recent battles, Romanov agreed to their terms and signed the Accords. She later joined Iron Man in a fight against Captain America due to his disagreements with the Accords and his criminal activities with the Winter Soldiers, who Rogers was attempting to protect. As the two Avengers factions fought against each other, Romanoff betrayed Iron Man's team to assist Captain America to find the instigator of the team's fight, inherently violating the Sokovia Accords. As a result, the fugitive Romanoff worked with Rick Mason to escape the government for aiding Rogers. In the process, Romanoff intercepted messages from her former surrogate sister, Yelena Belova, and the Red Room's resurgence. In possession of the Red Dust, Romanoff and Belova were relentlessly pursued by the Taskmaster, who worked for Dreykov, who was believed to have been killed. Reuniting with their surrogate parents, they worked together to bring down the Red Room once and for all, upon learning Taskmaster was actually Antonia. Now, Antonia, in case you wandered off, Antonia is the daughter that she thought she had killed years earlier. Upon learning that Antonia had survived all these years but was mind-controlled by Dreykov, Romanoff freed her from Dreykov's enthrallment to put an end to Dreykov's plans for world domination. Romanoff soon joined Rogers and Wilson in freeing the incarcerated Avengers. With the Avengers disbanded, Romanoff, Rogers, and Wilson went on the run for 2 years as fugitives, working alone to stop terrorist cells in Syria when the threat of Thanos approached Earth. Romanoff, Rogers, and Wilson protected Vision, who had the Mind Stone, which Thanos was after relentlessly. They later defended Wakanda from the attack, but were ultimately defeated when Thanos destroyed half of all life with the Infinity Gauntlet and a snap of his fingers. Romanoff emerged as one of the survivors, and also was part of the ambush on Thanos in an effort to retrieve the Infinity Stones under the Titan's snap, with no success. 5 years later, Romanoff led the Avengers alongside Captain America, now formed by Okai, Rocket Raccoon, Nebula, War Machine, and Captain Marvel, to undo the snap. The remaining Avengers split up into teams that retrieve all Infinity Stones from several alternative timelines in the time heist, sent to retrieve the Soul Stone on Vormir with Barton, Romanoff, against Barton's insistence, willingly jumped off the Vormir Mountains in the abyss below, sacrificing herself in the process in order to obtain the Soul Stone for the Avengers. So that was Black Widow's death, and she jumped off the cliff so others could survive and fight the good fight. Now let's get to the Black Widow movie, and we can start going through things from there. I just wanted to give you a contrast of what happened to her in the comics versus what happens to her in the MCU, why maybe some people's nose are out of joint, you know. Just for what it is, just watch it for what it is. Do people actually sit in theaters and in front of their screens with their arms crossed like a fresh turd's dangling under their nose? Well, you're not going to enjoy anything if you come to it like that. Go in with zero expectation, you know. Man, you know you're going to have, at least it's going to be a spectacle. You're going to have fun watching it. And if you don't have fun watching it and you're just sitting there judging the whole time, well, obviously you never were at the point where you could suspend that part of your brain that makes you enjoy something and for what it is, not for what it isn't or what it should be or what you think it should be. And that's really the problem or the issue. Everyone has in their mind who's been a comic book fan for years, or maybe you're new or you follow a certain character, everyone has in their mind, in their movie mind, how that character should look, talk, act, fart, eat the Subway sandwich. I mean, it goes down to the, you know, some of it gets really ridiculous, and I understand you love it. Good for you. Support it. Bye. You know, but, you know, also remember you have to service the existing fans. You just don't cut out the existing fans to make something new and possibly destroying something in the process. You should embrace the old fans, the new fans, and the fans that are yet to be. You know, yeah, and you have to make these movies a lot of times. You have to figure in the people who aren't into it, but now at this point, you know that a Marvel movie is going to make like $1 billion because everyone who sees Iron Man's going to watch Spider-Man. Everyone who watches Spider-Man is going to watch the Fantastic Four when it comes out. Everyone who watches, you know, Doctor Strange is going to watch Thor, and everyone's going to watch the TV shows, at least most people, but, there's a whole thing on the TV shows, but people don't understand production logistics and everything else, but they do understand that, they possibly didn't like it due to this, that, and the other, and they have no concept, and they'll just be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Well, no, dude, there's a lot of things that go into making something, and when you throw a stick in the spokes in the big wheel that's called Earth, and everything stops, and you're trying to do the best you can, there's going to be some shortcomings, and if you don't accept that, then, whatever. Well, nothing's going to make you happy. And be happy that they actually released it, because they weren't finished, and they had to rewrite a lot of this stuff. They had to reconfigure, actors maybe couldn't make it over, maybe talent, was stuck in England, and they couldn't get to Czechoslovakia or Atlanta or whatever, or the stunt person for this guy was stuck and he couldn't get into a country because they won't let people in. I mean, there's a whole, and that's just, you're not even talking about maybe the tech guys. Maybe that guy couldn't come over, this woman couldn't come over, this person was available, but the rest of his team wasn't. Maybe some people had passed away. There's a whole bunch of things that go into it that people just assume. Here's the old adage. I used to be a camera operator. What do you never do? You never show the client the raw footage. Why? Because people have in their mind, because they watch TV, that everything should look like the Oprah show. Everything should be pre-produced, this, that, and the other. There's a lot of footage that you don't see that, I'm not saying it's crap, but it isn't set up to be the actual footage. Maybe you're walking quickly to, 25 feet, and one of the principal actors is in frame, but he's not really acting, or maybe you're just catching the audio part of it, and that's extracted and put over another shot. Or there's a whole bunch of things that, back then, whatever, and even now, of some young guys, I said, hey, they're like, oh yeah, I did this, and I'm gonna show all the footage at the client's house. And I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, if you do, they're gonna be upset because they don't get it. They think everything should look like the Oprah show. And he's like, no. Well, guess what happened? Pissed off. Payment wasn't as such, and they think everything should look like the Oprah show, and there was some issues created from it. But hey, that's how you learn. But for the most people, don't get it. They just think, oh yeah, I know how everything's made because I watch behind the scenes videos, and I watch all the geek podcasts and the stuff on YouTube, and all the behind the stuff on that one chat. Dude, shut the fuck up. Just watch a goddamn show. Be happy about it. Because me growing up, I would have been happier than shit to have one crappy show after the Hulk went off the air, whatever. I would have even taken their version of Thor as a show. Wouldn't have been the best, but I still would have watched it. Why? Because then nothing was there. Now it's everywhere. Maybe people are, expect more, but they put hundreds of $millions into these things. And I don't know why they waited so long for Black Widow to get her movie. She should have been, like I said, 6-7 years ago, she should have had her movie where she could have just come out and the whole thing. Now, one of the issues I do have about the Black Widow movie is that it seemed like she was a supporting character in her own film. You have to set too many things up. They could have done something else. In my opinion, maybe they could have had a Prison Break series with, the new team, quote unquote, breaking out, and then she comes up at the last episode, and then boom, from there, there's a movie. And that tells her backstory. I don't know. That's what I would have done, but, there's a lot of moving parts, obviously, at Marvel, and what the hell do I know? But, yeah, she just seemed, because she's a serious character, then they had to tone her down a little bit, and, then you get the Red Guardian, who's kind of like a little bit of a Russian buffoon, yes. He's strong. Oh, there's a scene where he's arm wrestling. The Red Guardian is arm wrestling in a prison in Russia. And there's this big guy, sits down, huge. Well, it turns out that's the actual first mutant that you see on screen in the Marvel Universe. That guy actually turns into a bear. And Red Guardian and the bear actually fought on the same team. The Russian versions of the Avengers, basically. And throughout history, he's been in a few things. I'm not too versed on him, but I remember seeing him as a character in a couple of comic books. But he even called him the bear when he sat down to arm wrestle and wound up liquidating his wrist when he accused him of lying. Of you calling me liar? Apparently, the Red Guardian had fought Captain America in the 80s sometime, and the bear guy's like, he was frozen in ice then, yes. So he didn't like that, and, now we know that there's different Caps in different timelines. The old man Cap came back and gave Falcon his shield, and he had lived that life. So technically he was around in the 80s, and maybe we will get some Captain America content from the 80s. But what I really would like, I would like to see a World War II Captain America movie behind the scenes with him, Wolverine, and a couple other characters from that time, the first Human Torch. That would be cool. But, if we get from what we're hearing, if we get a rumor, I hear, hello, need some more coffee. Heard a rumor that they're going to make a Hulk and Wolverine movie. That would be badass. And if they don't get back Hugh Jackman for that, to give him the movie he would probably really want to do, and service him right and put him in the suit and the whole nine, and then he can, he can fuck off to another fucking universe because the multiverse is happening, so he could come back, make an appearance, or even be Old Man Logan. He could be like a figure that gives everyone advice, probably mostly bad, but it's fucking Logan. Anyway, back to Black Widow. Okay, so Black Widow starts out, and it's the two girls playing, and then they're having dinner, and then something happens. You see Dad come in, the dad figure, and, remember we said we're going to go on a big adventure one day? Well, it's happening. So, and he's saying this to the youngest daughter, and she doesn't know what's going on. The older daughter, Natasha, certainly does. And before you know it, they're on this... they get to an airport. They're on this airstrip. There's a nice chase, and basically they land in Russia. They're obviously spies. The authorities were after them to arrest them, but they wound up getting away. They wind up in Russia, and the girls are immediately shipped off to that Jagoff, and the Red Guardian is ready to go back as the Red Guardian and continue, and he's basically kind of callous about it and tells the girls to go with these guys. They basically put them in the Black Widow program, and the Red Guardian, unbeknownst to him, would sit in jail for the next 20 years or so. And so then it goes and it shows Black Widow basically blowing up the office when the would-be Taskmaster was a child. Now, in the comic books, the Taskmaster isn't female, and there's a different setup, but this is what this story is doing it, because it's not the comic book, it's not the movie in your brain, it's the movie on screen. And from the get-go, I kind of figured when we first saw the Taskmaster that, that would probably be the case. But then we go to, there's a dude lying in bed, Natasha, basically, that's her weapons in, I think he's a CIA guy maybe, or he works, he's an independent contractor, but, he knows the people in the business, and seems like we're going to see more of him in the universe, I would imagine. He's written all right. He's likable. So, he may pop up probably with the new Black Widow. But then we go to, there's basically the Black Widow faces off against the Taskmaster on a bridge. And of course, the Taskmaster, everyone knows, or maybe you don't, the Taskmaster can basically adjust to the way that you fight almost immediately. In this case, it's downloaded into her brain through a connection at the back of her head. And so when she sees Natasha and she falls off, she actually wasn't after Natasha, she was after what Natasha had, and that was the red dust. And doesn't initially want to fight her, then she does. Then Taskmaster does fight Black Widow and basically kicks her ass on the bridge. And, nicely shot. A lot of this stuff, when I see it, okay, what was shot before the lockdown worldwide and what was shot afterwards, because a lot of the stuff that was shot during the pandemic, no matter what the production was, there's less people in a frame. But she winds up fighting, and Black Widow basically gets kicked off a bridge and falling into the water, much less kind of foreshadowing the way that she would die, giving her life. But Taskmaster is surprised when opens up the case because Black Widow took the vials out of it and has those with her. Now we move on. So, Black Widow goes back to one of her safe houses, okay? And that's where she meets her little sister, quote unquote, years later. They recognize each other, but they don't trust each other. One works for the U.S., one works for the Russian government, and we have a standoff, and there's 4 holes. Did that come down? Well, they talk about 4 holes being in the wall. She's like, oh, what kind of gun made that? And like, oh, it wasn't a gun. Those were arrows. So this is the place where her and Cliff, or Hawkeye, had Clint, where Hawkeye and her had stayed and previously blew up the building and did some operations here. As we find out later, when they hide out from the Taskmaster in the subway, where apparently her and Hawkeye had spent a couple of days in the ceiling vent system. But I'm a fan of the new Black Widow. Let's go and talk about, okay, so that's Florence Pugh. She plays Yelena Belova. Right? Yeah. And she is the new, quote-unquote, Black Widow, or will be after this, because Black Widow in the current timeline is dead. So, this movie, Black Widow, is directed by Kate Shortland. The writing credits go to Jack Schaefer and Ned Benson. That they came up with the story, and the screenplay is by Eric Pearson. Now, I don't know. They probably should have had a woman writer on this, maybe. That would have made sense to me. I mean, the director did a fine job. Rachel Weiss plays Melina. She's awesome to see on screen. Rachel's always cool, and big fan of the Mummy movies, of course, and used to watch those with my boys when they were growing up. And Rachel Weisz is always a welcomed person on screen in my house. David Harbour plays Alexei. He does a good job. Like I said, he's a little buffoonish, but that's what they asked him to do, so that's what he's doing. You can't fault him for that. But he's well liked. He also brings a fan base from his show, that Stranger Things, that a lot of people really like. The Dreykov, played by Ray Winstone, he's always a solid guy. He plays a good bad guy, and he looks like that guy that no one trusts. William Hurt shows up as Secretary Ross briefly. We have Olga Kurylenko, who plays Antonia and the Taskmaster. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's probably about 20 widows in the Widow program, in the Black Widow program. And I'm sure that, that these characters, or at least the main ones, will show up in a, some type of Black Widow series, probably for Disney Plus in the future, and maybe even getting their own movie with the new Black Widow, leading them. Or are they going to go up against the Thunderbolts? Because Thunderbolt Ross is around, and of course, at the end of the movie, we have an appearance by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. But she's uncredited. Sorry if I ruined that for you, but I warned you there's going to be spoilers. So the cast is pretty good. No one really did a crappy job. Well, there was one that was kind of but maybe that person who was supposed to play that part, I'm not going to point it out, because I'm not here to berate things. I'm here to celebrate the stuff that we love. There's too many people going negative. I'm not going to. I'm going to talk about the good stuff about it. Now, the actress playing the new Black Widow, Yelena, she has a very dry take in humor. And I actually like her humor. I like what she's doing with her character. I personally do. And I would look forward to seeing more of her on screen. I think she did a great job. She's not Scarlett Johansson, and she shouldn't be. So what was weird about there was like two kind of, there was the buffoonery of Red Guardian and her with two different types of humor. And I think that was kind of I don't know. It seemed underserved. I don't know. It seemed the conflict of the different, it would have been better if they would have given her the comic relief part of it with that strain of humor that she has, and not really adding any more. But sometimes when the Red Guardian came on, it turned into a cartoon, and it kind of took away the seriousness of what we know of Black Widow. And of course, this is kind of like a Bond film, so you have the rooftop chases, you have motorcycle chases, you have active set pieces that are falling and destroying and carrying the actors, and death happening upon it for the bad guy, of course. The classic, hold on, don't let go. Whoops, there you go. Snap goes your leg. And of course, shortly after that, the girls get thrown into the building. Black Widow eats shit about 6 times, like Wile E. Coyote coming down a tree, and talks to another widow on the floor, and she's like, "Okay, we're gonna," or basically in a puddle outside or in the courtyard of this old building. She wants to help her. Her leg is snapperoonied, and that's when the Jagoff who runs this program basically lights up her munitions that are on her cuff, and she winds up shooting herself in the face because she's controlled, of course, through a implant or a microchip, and he basically takes her out as she's not worth it. She's just a machine, basically, and there's plenty more where that comes from. These people's lives are not worth anything to him, and I kind of disagree with that, because if you're putting in millions and millions of dollars into someone, you're not going to want to just throw them away that quickly. But they do wind up still having the red dust. Then it moves on. Then we get the motorcycle chase, and we get the subway scene where they're fighting, and of course, the Taskmaster follows the bloodstream down into a floor grate and goes down into the underworld. But the Black Widow and the new Black Widow are hiding in the ceiling. in the ventilation system that her and Black Hawkeye stayed at. Okay, so then they go and have a beer, and they're talking. They're finally getting along. Da 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 da. And what's fun? There's a really funny scene that she buys this like kind of weird vest. It's got all these pockets, and that's the first piece of clothing that she's ever bought. And it's kind of funny. She's from a communist country, so she's excited that she actually got to pick it out and buy this. And there's a cute little scene there. And of course, this is the vest that winds up being given to Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow and used in Endgame. That's her sister's vest that she gave her. So I like the way that Marvel does little Easter eggs like that, little transferences. Pretty cool. So then they wind up going to pick up their jet from their friend yet again, who makes another appearance. And he brings this old shitty Russian helicopter, and that's the best he can get for no money and no time. And of course, they have a little thing about it. There's a great joke about eating MREs, and then the next thing you know, the Red Guardian pops up on screen, does the arm wrestling thing with the bear, and then it's like mail call for the Red Guardian, and they're saying it a few times, and he's finally goes and grabs it, and it's this action figure of him as the Red Guardian. He presses the chest plate, which is a star, and then he pulls the string to make it talk, and it says, the Red Guardian forward. And then his head pops off. Well, in his head is an earpiece. He puts the earpiece in, and it's Natasha. And next thing you know, he knows he's getting out of jail. So he goes to the guards that fuck with him all the time and basically kick his ass. And he winds up getting out of the prison, and there's this really cool sequence. This action sequence has been done before, kind of, but not in this way. The way that this was shot and the way that they did the helicopter thing, I'm not going to go detail on it because I don't want to ruin it for you. But I thought it was really good. It was really, really cool the way that they did this sequence. Me being a former special effects guy and knowing what's involved in this sequence, I thought it was pretty cool. And David Harbour does shine in this moment for sure, especially when he starts jumping like a superhero, and it's pretty cool. So they wind up, the girls save him, and they wind up. They're like, "Oh, we don't have enough gas to get to wherever." Da da da. And he goes, "Oh well, don't worry about it. We got plenty of gas." Next shot, it's a helicopter crash. The helicopter is crash landed, out of fuel, engine smoking, and the first thing he could actually ask his, daughter, quote unquote, "No, did Captain America mention me?" That was fucking hilarious. He didn't, total fucking stupid guy dad move. Well, he's not really a dad, but, ask about that rather than the kids. That's just fucking stupid. But it was funny nonetheless. And then they go to a pig farm, and that's where their quote unquote mom is. And before you know it, they're suiting up. And they're suiting up and basically said, "Yeah, I kind of called them. They're here. They're on their way. We're going to get them. Oh, they're coming to get you." And they pull, of course, a switch after the Red Guardian, basically puts on his suit, which is obviously built for him, and he was about, 30 pounds lighter. And the way that the headpiece fits is pretty funny. So they joke around a bit before they have to start going into action. The girls have a nice little scene, da-da-da-da. Red Guardian and the new Black Widow have a scene in one of the rooms in the cabin. And she's like, "Oh, you never care for me?" And he starts singing "Bye Bye, Miss American Pie" by John McClane, and she kind of tears up, and they sing it together. Nice little moment, This Will Be the Day the Music Died by McClane. That was a huge song when I was, 4 or 5 years old, and so it was kind of cool to see that callback because I would understand like a dad to sing or a parent or older sibling singing that song with me. That would be kind of cool. So the bad guys come. Mom is dressed as a Black Widow. She zaps the girls. They all get kidnapped, and before you know it, they're flying back, and they see Mr. Scummy Jagoff, the big bad, and she has a little discussion. He basically is a misogynist, sexic fuckface, and Rachel Weisz gives him the best fucking dirty look. She's really good. Always liked her. So then it turns out that the mom and Natasha have switched costumes, and they have the fake mask on to resemble each other that was used in, and I think that was just used recently, wasn't it? It was used a couple of times. Black Widow did it in Avengers, I think, where she wore that mask, and she fooled, I think, Steve Rogers. But there's another fight scene in the medical facility, and they try to get the young Black Widow, and of course she doesn't take that. Our Black Widow winds up going to see Mr. Jagoff in the room there, and she tries to attack him, but she can't due to the programming that he instilled in her. Finds out Taskmaster is his daughter. Black Widow has an existential crisis right in the room. This lady's scarred and damaged and everything else, and all she can do is focus on her and basically try to turn her against her dad. She obviously does not have free will and is totally controlled. And, you shouldn't control your kids, especially to that degree. Holy shit. So, Black Widow's left with this guy, and basically the Red Guardian turns around. He has to fight by himself because his quote-unquote ex-wife is basically gone, and the Black Widow is basically trying to... Well, the mom, dressed in white, who's really someone else, is trying to shut the engines down in the sky of the Red Room, and that's why no one could find the Red Room, because it's always hidden in the clouds. Now, she's then locked into this situation, and I won't spoil it, but man, the way that thing comes down, and they have to basically flee before this thing hits the ground. So they're trying to get out of there. Some great fight sequences. The Black Widows come in, and basically the young Black Widow vaporizes this red dust, which, basically negates their programming, and everyone now has free will, and in the middle of the fight, they basically become friends, and, kumbaya, and let's move on to something else, and, get out of here, get your freedom. And, of course, the family is trying to save each other. You have Mom in the jet, Red Guardian almost falling off. Mom rescues him. He's falling all over the plane, getting thrown around like a teddy bear in a tin can. And then we have another situation where Taskmaster is with the Black Widow, and we have young Black Widow jumping up onto the plane, onto the wing, just like her stepfather had to do in the beginning of the movie when they were fleeing. And except this ship that's flying, it's a helicopter, and it's got this jet engine, basically takes off like a Harrier. And young Black Widow comes up there with her staff and jams it into the engine. She, of course, flies off. Black Widow jumps off the side of the building like Falcon to save Cap. Mr. Jagoff finally gets burned. His fucking thing blows up. She jumps over the side. Boom, like James Bond. And she is now has an action sequence of debris and everything else and bad guys following them to the ground as if it were just, stepping off your patio. So they finally land. Taskmaster's there. She beats Taskmaster, or does she? And let's see here. Basically, she wants to be free and yada, yada, yada. And there's a little cry moment. She apologizes for damaging her and all that kind of shit. She goes to get her sister. There's a little moment, the whole family. And the authorities come to get, or S.H.I.E.L.D. comes to get the family. Black Widows, or no, I'm sorry. The Black Widows have another jet, kind of like a Harrier jet, and they come and grab the family. Black Widow stays behind to take the rap for everything that's happened with S.H.I.E.L.D. And from here is where they go to. This movie ends, and you have next thing you know. So this is where it goes into the Avengers Endgame Infinity War deal. Because the next shot you see of her, there's the jet that they use in Avengers Endgame after the 5-year snap. And she has her blonde, short hair bob from, her longer red hair. Now, I don't know. Scarlett Johansson, I think, was very underserved in this film. They could have gave her more. This guy that she's dealing with, they're really great on screen. It's too bad that they didn't deal with each other in a few other films. He's just a welcome addition to the Marvel cast, in my opinion. But, yeah, and then it ends with our new Black Widow going, Yelena Belova. So Yelena goes to, and she has a dog. She always wanted a dog. So she goes into the middle of nowhere where they grew up in the small town to visit Natasha's grave. And the next thing you know, Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character walks up behind her and basically, I think is drafting her for the Thunderbirds. So that was Black Widow. Black Widow's movie should have been called The New Black Widow. I think people would have taken it in the way that it was presented better. But, what do I know? So if you'd like to find more content from me, if you want to check it out, I have other podcasts. We have blogs, some merch coming up, and my books are starting to get released on vaudevillepres.com and vincentcustush.com here over the next month. I had to move the studio at the last minute, not due to anything that was under my control. I was good. Other situations changed on their end. So right when I was about to come out with this stuff, I had to take a 2-month break to get things situated, rebuilt, and reestablished, and now all that stuff will be rolling out, so I apologize for that. But yeah, let's talk about the Disney lawsuit. Okay, so in Captain America, Iron Man 2, Natasha Romanov's Black Widow's first appearance, she got paid $400,000. Okay, and people are like, $400,000? Oh my God. I'm like, okay, well, first of all, you cut that in half after taxes, and the leech is like, agents have to be paid, managers, and I don't mean them as the leeches. I mean the taxes as the leeches. But they have their job, and they have their, hey, they did their job. They got to get paid. Period. That's how contracts work. Hey, agency fee. Well, they get this percentage, and that's what they get percentage on every job, no matter how much you're paid. So deal with it and move on. So, she's been with, Scarlett Johansson's been with, Marvel, 10 years, whatever, probably a little longer with the development and everything else, and when she was signed on, yada, yada. They should have given her her own movie years earlier. They didn't. And basically, she was in great movies that made a lot of money, great spectacle, superhero flicks. When I say great, I don't mean that they were Oscar-worthy necessarily, but all the movies look great. They sound great. The stunts are amazing. They got cool shit in them. I enjoy all this stuff. I still don't understand the negativity that people. I'd rather celebrate it than be pissed off about it. Now, there are times where I don't like a movie and I think it really sucks and I'll bitch about it personally. But you know what? You're not going to see me review them because why? There's way too much negativity getting thrown in the world. Let's throw some positivity behind creativity instead of negativity behind the creativity. Because a lot of people don't know what they're doing, including the bean counters at Disney and the CEO who decided to go behind Kevin Feige's back and not tell him. He runs Marvel Studios. He should have been fucking told in advance and not treated like some sideshow chump. Okay? The guy who's making you the most money, you have all this drama going on at Lucasfilm because Kathleen Kennedy's not the right person for the job. She's a legendary producer, absolutely, but not right for that job. She went against what Star Wars meant and had to destroy everything and make everything, the Force is female. Fuck yourself. Fuck off. No, the Force is for everybody, you dork. Sci-fi is misogynistic. Have you read any sci-fi? Have you watched any sci-fi? Hello? McFly. Yeah, sometimes when people say, pick up a fucking book, maybe you should, because there's a lot of people who don't get it. Oh, Star Trek needs to be woke. No, it doesn't, because they figured that shit out. It's dystopian, it's utopian, not dystopian, you fuck. Ugh, so stupid. Sorry, a little negativity on creativity. So I'll bitch about that, but I will not, bitch about people working 18, 20 hours a day for months on end, sometimes years on end. Hey, man, I applaud you for making that project happen, getting it done, and putting it out. It's not an easy task by any measure. But Scarlett Johansson had a fucking contract. And you're like, oh, well, she already made $20 million. Who fucking cares? That's what she negotiated. Like Robert Meyer Burnett always says, it ain't show friends, it's show business. And yeah, you only get what you negotiate. She negotiated a $20 million payday for her Black Widow film that she waited for 10 years to do while promoting that universe that has made, what, in the box office, we're talking $26 billion? I could be wrong, but it's up there. I think it was 20. Yeah, it's like somewhere around $26 billion just in box office, not including toys and merch and everything else. I mean, the comic book industry has basically been decimated because you have these woke people coming in, and I don't mean that as woke people. Oh, you said what those? Relax. You don't come in and change everything to where, hey, let's go against the demographic that's buying this and let's make it for people who don't buy this stuff. No, you have to service the people who have been buying it, the people who should buy it, the people who would buy it, and the people who might. You don't focus on something on an audience that isn't there. Focus on the audience you have. All the major titles went through the floor. It's unbelievable. Anyway, getting back to Disney. So, in the contract, they have $20 million exclusive to be released exclusively in motion in theaters. Okay, that's a big deal. You know why? Well, if it makes over X amount of money, she has bonuses figured in. Okay? But if you switch that system to streaming, where you pay $29.95 to get that streamed into your home, let's say, okay, $30. So $30 times $1 million, that's $30 million. Okay. How many people watched it at home? Well, there's 100, I think they have 115 million subscribers, Disney Plus. Let's say 60 million did it. That's a lot of change, man. So it wasn't figured in for streaming for that service in her contract. So a lot of the people who watched it in their home, it doesn't matter if there's a lockdown going on or whatever, or the sky turned purple. Doesn't matter. She had a contract. Exclusive theatrical release. They released it on Disney Plus and in the theaters, in the same time frame. I think it was a week apart. But her second week, box office tanked. That means people are watching it at home. A lot of people watch it at home. And she's not due any of that money? Oh, by hell yeah, she is. And depending on how many people bought that, so of 30 million people, let's go with 30, even though I did 60, 30 and 60. So we have 60 million people. They spend $10 on a movie ticket. That's a lot of change, man. You're talking $300 million. Now add some of the popcorn and everything else because the movie companies get a little take of your popcorn money and your soda money. That's why it costs a damn much. You add it together, she should get her bonus because if it was strictly theater, she would have attained those bonuses and she's due them. Doesn't matter if you like the movie, if you don't like the actresses or the actors, if you don't like the director, if you don't like the color suit she was wearing, if you don't like... Doesn't matter. If someone tells you, hey, I'm going to buy your car for 10 grand, and then they show up, take your car, and they say the payment's in the payment's in the mailbox, and it's only $5,000. Like, whoa, supposed to be $10,000. Oh, well, that thing I left you right next to it, that's a collectible. That's worth $6,000. So you're actually getting a little bit more. But then when you go to check out the price, value dropped through the floor, and now that collectible's only worth $5. Well, you want your fucking $5,000. Period. Doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor you are. The fact is, you made a contract. And Disney is famous for being cheap asses. Like when I was hired to work on What's Love Got to Do with It? The Tina Turner movie. I was working 18-hour days for $50. And I got a call to work on commercials making $250 a day. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to fucking leave that and I'm going to go work on the commercials. They're like, oh, but, it doesn't matter. This is a better job than that one because you're working for Walt Disney Company and we don't have to pay anyone. You get to put that on your resume that you work for Walt Disney Company. Yeah? You going to pay my bills? So, anyway, Disney's notorious for this. So now we have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson coming out. We have Emily Blunt. We have, I think there's like 10 huge A-list actors now suing Disney because they breached all these contracts. And you needed someone like Scarlett Johansson to come out and say, you know what? Hey, fuck you. You ripped me off, get fucked. You need to pay up, and now you're going to have to pay more. That's the deals that were made. And once she did it, she felt comfortable. Rock stayed out of it for a little bit. And then when The Rock signed on, now, this isn't misogyny thing. He's the biggest fucking movie presence as far as box office and success for the action genre, even though his movie now kind of tanked, but that Disney Plus. His co-star suing, and when he comes on, he's got some clout, and people should, beware. And really, if you're going to take Disney's side of this, that's funny because, the only thing that's making money is Marvel, and then they go and they do this, and then they piss off Kevin Feige, who prides himself on having all these great relationships with his talent, okay? So now the talent looks at Feige and goes, what the fuck? And then you have the fans looking at Feige going, what the fuck? And then you have even the non-fans reading about this and, hey, why did this happen? How did this go through? And legal goes, what the fuck? You can't do that. Yeah, Hollywood's used to fucking people. Trust me. I had a show, ran for 17 years, was stolen from me, ran on a music television network, hypothetically, And I lost, I don't know, $60 million probably over time. But hey, that doesn't matter. As I sit here, being quite comfortable, and I can sleep at night. But yeah, these people aren't your friends. They're there to fuck you. What is big business about? Who can fuck the other one worse? And, you know, that's why you have agents and managers, because it takes the talent out of that equation. You don't want the talent being pissed off at the studio and the studio being pissed off at the talent because of negotiation tactics, whatever that happens. You know what I mean? I just think that in the end, all the actors, the producers, the direct, because it doesn't, not just the actors that this impacts. It could be part of the director's deals, the producer's deals, the co-stars deals. Also, what about the movie guys who've been screwed for the last, year and a half when everything was shut down? Movie theaters need to make this income. You have a big movie, Marvel movie coming out. Doesn't matter what name is in front of or after the Marvel tag. That's $1 billion in box office receipts for the most part. And then you take half of that away from them? The people who've been waiting and who made you make that money by, distributing and having places to view your projects, and then you're going to turn around and screw them, screw the artists, screw the filmmakers, and at some point screw the fans, because a lot of people won't even go to a movie theater if you can watch it on your couch. There's something to be said. There's a reason why they call it movie magic. When you're sitting in a dark room, your phone's off, no one could bug you, and hopefully you don't have 3 people talking throughout the whole movie sitting right behind you, but you go to a movie theater for a reason, to have an experience. Now you're taking the experience away for what people thrive and look forward to. I used to watch back in between gigs in my 20s and 30s. Early 30s, I would watch sometimes 4 movies a week in the theater, sometimes more. Then you had movie rentals back in the day. I'd rent another 10 movies. I watch so much content. I'm glad that they're making these stories, but hey, man, bottom line is you got to pay your people. And if there seems to be a thing going around through all these industries right now, is that they don't want to pay. They want to make the money, but the people who don't create are like, you know what? Fuck those people. What do they know? Well, they know enough to write a goddamn movie that you didn't write, you dumbass. So, who knows? All I know is you got to pay your people. They deserve to be paid. And they should be, and they should get all the damages that they're asking for. And if you're crying for Disney, well, quack, quack. If it sounds like a duck, if it walks like a duck, it's a duck. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that to be nice and not go totally negative, but the house of Mouse. It's time to share some of that cheddar, baby, and maybe you will get even more talent and more viewers, more ticket buyers. Who knows? You would get more positive PR that way. I'm sure you don't want another Star Wars situation on your hands, especially for the one thing that worldwide, people are, this is the Star Wars for this generation and beyond. So I don't think you really want to screw yourself that bad. Who knows? Maybe you do. But, hey, if you want us to cover something on here or come on as a guest to talk about your creative means, contact me at vaudevilpress.com. Okay, go to the tab that says Contact, and then you click there, and then there's a field you can fill out and tell us what you want to do or what you think the show should be centered around. And if we choose your subject, they'll send you a free T-shirt. How about that? I still have to design them, but I think I'll design the T-shirt tonight so we can have something to give away within the next week, okay? So thanks for hanging out. This wraps up episode 105 of CreatiVity with V, brought to you by Vaudeville Press. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for hanging out on the couch, having that cup of coffee or that shot of bourbon, and enjoy the day. And remember, rock on.